What's happening, everybody? Brett here, and we are back in Game 3 of our three-part series here on Total War Warhammer 2's multiplayer scene. Today is going to be a little bit different. I was not in this game. I left after 2 games, and the Wood Elf player, Miro Nava, Ramiro, thank you, big thanks, man, big shout out to you for sending me this replay so we could see the conclusion of this 3-part series. We were 1-1 as far as our teams went. I left, I had to go, but he was kind enough to send me the replay. So we have the Wood Elves, Bretonnia, and the Dwarves versus the Greenskins, Skaven, and the High Elves on one of the new maps here. For the Dark Elves, came with Lokir Fellheart. This is actually, they're battling on top of one of the Black Arcs. Look how insane this map is. This is a boat, guys. This is a boat in the ocean of the Warhammer world. I can't, like, how far away can I even, like, zoom out without falling off this cliff? Look how big the sails are. Unbelievable. I love this map. And it's got a distinct advantage, I would say, to the people who start on the high ground. You've got these 3, like, giant vents here that allow you to kind of take up defensive positions and hold alleyways. But this map is so huge that it's absolutely not practical to do that all of the time. So this is interesting. I kind of feel like these units got forgotten about. Goblobber plus Grudgesower. Anyway, let me go ahead and go over the army comps here. And I'm gonna, yeah, let's leave it in slow-mo. Things seem to be going rather slowly here. So we have Wood Elves. I see Treekin, 2 units on this side of the battlefield with a Spellsinger with the Lore of Life. Lots of spells taken on her. Awaken of the Wood, Earth Blood, and Shield of Thorns. Glade Lord here with Foe Seeker, and is he on horseback? This is the one that can shoot, and it's going to be a pretty good choice for these 3v3s. Usually they get to shoot all of their ammunition before they have to engage in battle. 4 units of the Eternal Guards with shields, an excellent choice for blocking up the front line. This kind of position here, they could stand here as wide as possible and probably hold for a decent amount of time. Deepwood Scouts, great choice. Heavy missile damage coming off of these guys. Not the best armor piercing, but it's not bad. They have Master Ambusher, so they're essentially invisible to the opponent. I see we also have a nice mix of the Glade Guard with Starfire Shafts. They do flaming damage. They have a bit better AP, I think, than the Deepwood Scouts. The Way Watchers are the ones that have the incredible armor piercing. But this is a lot of firepower. There's 3 and 3 of those. And is that all that the Wood Elves brought? No. I also see here there are 2 units of Wild Riders. These are the non-shielded variant, but the weapon strength on these guys, 45 weapon strength. They have decent physical resistance of 20%, and Vanguard deployment, of course, let them be placed all the way over here. And they are a bit out of position, but probably for the best had they been... Whoa, we're falling off a cliff. Had they been placed, let's say, here in Vanguard deployment, where these Wardens of Montfort currently are, they would probably be hating their life right now, as they would be very close to, no doubt, ranged units, artillery pieces, and they would get blown to pieces. So the Wardens of Montfort find themselves pretty well locked up in this position. They do poison damage from range, and they have decent melee stats compared to the rest of the mounted yeomen, but I don't know what they can do against gutter runners with poison on 2 different sides, and then Orc Boar Boy Biggins. Check these dudes out. Big squealing armored hogs chasing them down, looking all angry, but they won't be able to catch them. Not a chance, because they are applying that poison slow, but once they run into the back of these gutter runners, they're going to have some trouble. And then we see out on the flanks here, Night Goblin archers, just standard archers, not mounted on wolves. They're going to be very slow. If the Bretonnian Cav can pick these dudes out, they'll have a good time running them down. But they are currently invisible, as most goblins do have the stalk mechanic. So they'll probably get very close before they're being seen. The Ekron Miners also have Vanguard deployment for the Dwarves, but why they're left out here, I'm not quite sure. They're an expensive unit. They're a Regiment of Renown. These dudes can rack up hundreds of kills with their extra. They have 3 ammunition of their blasting charges, which is 3 times as much as a standard miner with blasting charges. And if you put them right behind your front line and just let them throw, you'll get hundreds of kills. I think they're one of the most undervalued units on the Dwarf roster. And then out here, one of my favorite units on the Dwarf roster is the Goblobber. who is going to have plenty of great targets here at the opening portions of this game, but for whatever reason has been left out here outside the protection of these formations. And it looks like the dwarves decided to take care of the artillery for this entire team. I'm seeing cannons, organ guns. You can zoom in for those of you guys who've never seen an organ gun before, because that wouldn't surprise me. Like giant matchlock cannons. Pretty sweet. And there's going to be a ton of them with the cannons to give them the extra 440 range, where the organ guns only have 300 range but much higher armor piercing values. Very good at shredding large targets and heavily armored infantry targets alike. So a lot of those units, miners with blasting charges in the front screening for them, and just a standard dwarf lore. Let's see if he took any of his abilities. No. Actually, no. Is that one ability? What is this? Prospector Spyglass, plus 18% accuracy. No. That's got to be coming from this, the Master Engineer. Another unit you don't get to see very often. This guy with the ridiculous backpack. And I think in the lore, there's one of these dudes, a legendary lore, that uses a shotgun. I'd love to see him get added into the game. But these units are pretty underutilized as well. I try to bring them if I'm going to bring this much artillery. What you want to do is make something of like a hexagon formation and then stand him in the middle. And when he goes to use all of his different buffs, every single one of your artillery pieces will get it, and it will be quite powerful. So last but not least, for our allies here, my allied players, we are going to have Bretonnia. So a nice front line of spearmen at arms with shields. 3, 4, looks like 4 in total. A couple units of foot squires, 2 units of those. The Holy Wardens of La Maison Tall, a great unit in almost any matchup. The Battle Pilgrims, they do flaming and magical damage. They also have frenzy. And let's see, what else do we have? The Beast Slayers of Bastion, an incredibly powerful defensive unit. Anti-large, armor piercing. They're essentially foot squires with halberds, and they're going to be able to do a lot of work. And in the background, we just have 3 peasant bowmen with quite the tongue twister. Peasant bowmen with pox arrows. Okay, I got it. And that's going to be applying poison, slowing units, debuffing stats. I like to bring a mix. I would bring maybe 2 of these, cut some gold, and buy a regular one. Because unless you're firing at 3 completely separate targets, you're not going to be applying that debuff very evenly. And then for their cavalry, a Bretonian army with very little cavalry is very interesting to me. Royal Pegasus Knights, the expensive Grail Knight-esque variant. Let's see what their stats looking like. They have physical resistance of 20%, perfect vigor, they never get tired. Their stats are enormous, 61 weapon strength. They do magic damage, which is something that's easily overlooked. They actually have shields up on these Pegasus. Not sure how they managed to shield their Pegasus from harm, but they also have immune to psychology, so that's very good for them. And as long as they're not broken, they get that 20% physical resistance. And then we also have the Companions of Corneas, and these are the Questing Knight Regiment of Renowns. Huge stats. For whatever reason, they just have a random 25% fire resistance. They also are immune to psychology. They have the Blessing of the Lady, the 20%, and they're absolute monsters. You can throw them into the front line behind your foot squires and just run them in there and let them chew up infantry with their armor-piercing anti-infantry bonus, and then pull them out and kind of cycle charge through the front line that way. They're very good at that. And for their lore choice, they have the Fey Enchantress, no doubt for her healing. And she also has Favor of the Fey for a bit of a buff. She has her Mists of the Lady. Whenever she gets into melee combat, she drains life from units nearby. And that's probably going to be valuable in a 3v3 where blobbing is quite prevalent. And it looks like, is this the Goblobbers getting all these kills? 38 kills right now, because the enemy is advancing in one giant blob. And ooh, the Night Goblin Archers are quickly approaching. Good play to remove the Ekron Miners here. So we've got a front wall of High Elf Spearmen, tons of them, and then a whole back line of the Sword Masters of Hoeth. So let the Spearmen take the damage, take the missile fire, and then make sure the Sword Masters get in there nice and healthy. The Orc player, Black Orcs here, heavy metal, ready to get in there, kind of similar, walking behind the Sword Masters of Hoeth. Lots of Orc boys, a unit, once again, that I think is pretty underutilized in the Orc roster as well. They hit hard. You just got to get them into melee, get them stuck in with the boys. And we have Orc Biggins for their anti-large bonus. That's going to be great if the Knights of Corneas decide to charge in They also have decent armor piercing, so they'll be able to chew through dwarves if that's something they end up having to fight. And they're being led by a prince. A prince on foot, not something you get to see very often, but with stand your ground, he'll be able to apply a nice melee defense and leadership buff to this huge core, this huge infantry core that they're trying to push forward with. And then Grimgor Ironhide, who of course has the Wa to give that charge bonus and melee attack bonus, as well as stand your ground as well to, once again, apply melee defense and leadership. They have an encouragement aura, and of course Grimgor is immune to psychology. That dude just wants to kill all day long. I hope that as many kills as this is getting, and it's kind of insane that they would blob up this much, I'm like hoping that the Fey Enchantress, somebody is going to come over here and cast some kind of spell that's just going to demolish these dudes. Yeah, here comes Awakening of the Wood. Hopefully it's overcasted. Let's see how much it does and who it's coming from. Oh, it's probably coming from the Spell Singer, Lore of Life. Big damage. It's going to disrupt the heck out of that formation. And we also have the Skaven player. We'll get to them in just a second. Slave spears to defend their artillery with just a few groups of spearmen as well from the High Elves to defend these two Doomdiver catapults. And it was smart that they did that because, you know, you're playing against the Wood Elves. You have to expect Wild Riders, other units to get in and amongst you. And the Wood Elves are kind of forcing them to rethink their blobbing, you know, Wa type strategy. Because if they get behind you and start shooting into your backs, I mean, your shields aren't going to do anything, and they will undoubtedly shut down your artillery. It's at this exact moment that the Night Goblin archers have been revealed. Hopefully, I see the organ guns are no doubt firing. You'll see this is that kind of their spread right here. It's going to be absolutely decimating, especially when you include the Glade-Guard Starfire shafts into this equation as well. So much firepower going off. These archers are a little close. Some of them will probably get shot in the back. You really want to, for organ guns especially, you need to give them lots of line of sight to make sure that they don't shoot into your own men. But now that these have been revealed, they'll probably just dumpster the Goblobber instantly with 1 or 2 volleys. The Ekron Miners really need to get out of there. They're not going to get their full value if they have to sit here and eat that charge. Doomwheel coming up. Some assassins. Looks like an assassin, and is that Lord Skroak? Okay, so ever the meta pick, Lord Skroak is going to be on the battlefield to summon and cast his pestilent spells. A huge block. Man, where's all the AoE magic? Clan Rats with spears, Storm Vermin with halberds, Clan Rats with shields, Deathglow Bombardiers, Poison Wind Globadiers. Good choices all. And Gutter Runners with poison are very good at kiting Bretonnian Cav, which is what I would expect them to be doing for the majority of the battle, and probably also okay at dealing with different Wood Elf threats. So without any further ado, guys, is that everyone? Did we get everyone? I think we did. No hidden units here. And the Orc Boar Boy Biggins are kind of in reserve right now. So let's go ahead and fast forward this. These Black Orcs have been peeled off to try and deal with the Wood Elf threat. And they're going to clash with some Eternal Guards. Very nice choice just to send one at a time. I would probably send one Treekin too. A Treekin plus the Eternal Guard is probably enough to hold them back. Getting more and more shot up. The Spell Singer's coming in from the back. The Treekin and should certainly be peeled off to help block up this first engagement. The Goblobber's still online, 177 kills. It's too late to move them, guys. This was way too late. I don't understand why they didn't just deploy here. You know, get them on top of a hill, and they could be shooting this entire map. Still half of its ammunition left, which is really painful as a dwarf lover. Lots of these Pox arrows coming in now are going to be poisoning the Swordmasters. And the thing with the High Elves is, if you get their units below 50% HP, they are going to be suffering. They're not going to have their martial mastery or martial prowess anymore, and they are going to start to suck. They're going to lose a lot of those stat bonuses that they normally get. Royal Pegasus Knights, we can see here, they've managed to shut down temporarily these Doomdiver catapults. One of them has taken a huge amount of damage. It'll go offline in just a second. And this other one may end up getting wrapped around by the Wolf Riders, or the Wild Riders. Sorry, Wood Elves. The Spearmen are no doubt going to engage here and here, shut them down, engage the other Spearmen. The Glade Lord can just sit back and shoot. But they need to do something, because you don't want to let Royal Pegasus Knights die to High Elf Spearmen. That's certainly not a good trade. The Goblobber is offline. The Ekron's Miners, see if they were able to even to throw anything. Nope. Kind of a huge waste of them. sad to say. I love this unit. I like to see them used to their full potential, because had they just been standing here, they would still be throwing, racking up dozens and dozens of kills. The High Elf infantry line is pretty much gone. Very interesting. And the Doom Wheel is kind of trying to skirmish with its Warp Lightning. But if these Companions of Corneas get on it, they're going to crush it. They're made for fighting infantry, but their armor piercing is no joke. And you kind of have to respect it no matter what you're playing. So while I like that this team is working well together, their formation needs a lot of help. And that mostly just comes from not being in Discord and kind of organizing, playing with, strangers on the internet. But these Foot Squires should be here to try and intercept these Orc boys from getting into these miners. The Companions of Corneas see lots and lots of juicy targets. The Waz popped, but way too late. The High Elves have already been decimated in melee. The Foot Squires, okay, they're good. They're screening right now. The Beast Slayers of Bastiona being brought to this flank. These units here are doing absolutely nothing. They should be getting engaged and then wrapped around with whatever units are left. For instance, these Battle Pilgrims out here need to be brought around. The artillery is well protected. It's very, staggered in the way that they engage, because they put all their eggs in one basket essentially on this one side of the battlefield. This looks like something probably from Lord Scrope, if I had to guess. Yep, this plague is going off. It's going to do tons of damage to these peasant bowmen, no doubt. The Wood Elves are engaged in the backfield. They're kind of smart. They've peeled off some Wild Riders here. You don't really need all of them in this backline engagement. The Spellsinger is the bravest person on the battlefield right now. Another Awaken in the Wood. I love that. It's a great spell because it triggers Life Bloom. Every time she casts that, a map-wide heal goes off for her entire team. It's very small, but it can add up over a long battle if you're just constantly spamming out that spell. And she's going to get kills from that. She's going to do damage from that and get heals from that. So it's a nice setup. Royal Pegasus Knights can absolutely crush this Doom Wheel if they see it and go for it. The Companions of Corneas almost just need to stand and fight, I think, at this point. Give these guys an Earthblood or a Regrowth and let them chew through Clan Rat Spears with the support of all of this ranged firepower. They'll eventually break, and they'll still be left tanking and fighting enough to help win the day for you. This Dwarf Lord was thrown in all on his lonesome against an assassin and Lord Scrope, and he was wavering for a second there. He almost failed his ancestors. Another Awaken of the Wood. Great play from the Wood Elf player. These Royal Pegasus Knights really need to get into the fight. Either attack Grimgore, attack this Doom Wheel, do something. All these routing units need to be returned. Some of these Treekin here could be brought back in. But at least the Dwarf player has kept their artillery online. The Bretonnian player really needs to pull some of this infantry into this line, lest their artillery be overrun. The Master Engineer using ballistics calibration to boost the accuracy and the reload skill of its nearby artillery pieces, which is good, but the Doom Wheel has gotten in and amongst them. Meanwhile, the Pegasus Knights remain forgotten. The Companions are going to free themselves from fighting Clan Rats with spears. It's a good choice, but someone's got to do it, and if the Bretonnian player is not going to bring forward his infantry to defend them, he's got to at least micro that unit of cavalry. The archers have routed. They're all facing the wrong way. Now they're turning. Hopefully they'll start shooting in just a second here. They're firing at Grimgore, which is not what I would shoot at, because Grimgore is a single target, and for the most part they're probably just poisoning all of their allies who are trying to fight Grimgore. So the Royal Pegasus Knights have been poisoned by their own units, and it's going to make it harder for them to fight Grimgore. They have an anti-large bonus. Grimgore is, believe it or not, he's actually an infantry size model, so they get no bonuses against him. It looks like the cannons are shooting at Lord Scrope. Not a terrible target. Organ gun still firing. It looks like it's heavy infantry. Storm Vermin or Gutter Runners is not a bad choice either. Just to put some damage on them. Get these units routing so they're not putting pressure on your artillery, which to be honest is kind of single-handedly winning the game. Nice play from the Wood Elves early on to wrap up and around. Really kind of bad play from the opponents blobbing up like that. Any single Wind of Death type spell would have absolutely punished that play. The Eternal Guard, Spearmen, just holding the line here. This Doomdiver Catapult still online, but looks like it's been completely forgotten about. But what a battle back here. Spearmen on Spearmen on Spearmen. Yeah, artillery still online. The Orc Boar Boy Biggins come in for a huge charge, and they're going to carve up these Dawi before anyone notices, and they're going to be cycle-charged into each artillery piece, just trying to knock them off. Doom Wheel has been shattered. That's good news, and that's going to be the end of the game. Once they started to kind of route them towards the edge of the battlefield here, you had to imagine that was going to be that. So, good defensive strategy. Of course, they started at the top of the hill with tons and tons of artillery, but a little bit of mismicroing here and there could have made for a much smoother game. And I would say the big mistake of you guys, I mean, you three players, not to dump on you. I'm not trying to dump on you, be super negative. But had you spread out more, not blobbed with your infantry, I mean, it's very okay to deploy all of your units in one location, right? That's okay. You're consolidating your forces. But the problem is you had to know going up against, you know, dwarves plus wood elves, and even sometimes Bretonnia, that you weren't going to have the mobility advantage versus Bretonnia. You weren't going to have the skirmishing advantage versus the wood elves, and you weren't going to have the artillery advantage against the dwarves. So what that leaves is you need to try and focus on like almost like what you did in infantry rush, being sneaky, like with these night goblin archers, and you know, getting up in their face as quickly as possible and trying to shut down what high value targets you can, and trying to advance in a way that doesn't blob you up, because I think these three players were extremely lucky that the most AoE spell on the battlefield was an Awaken the Wood from Mironava here, whose Spellsinger did not get a ton of kills, but did a lot of damage for what she is, and probably did an absolute ton of healing as well. So one of the great things that managed to turn the tide in their favor. And then the artillery. Look at these kills. This is sickening. This is a sickening 582 kills on an organ gun. Is insane. And that's because they approached from one direction and just got shot to pieces in those huge, huge infantry blobs. The poor High Elf player advanced and did almost nothing. As soon as he got into combat and died, that was when the wall was popped. So that had to feel pretty bad. Going an entire build of nothing but infantry, only to see it get mowed down by an entire build of artillery and blasting charges. So a fun game on a great map. All these players might be amazing, you know, in 1v1 scenarios, but it takes a whole different skill set and amount of teamwork to play in 2v2s and 3v3s. So many different combinations can be unlocked. So many counters have to be considered, and you really have to have lots of teamwork. And I think, honestly, what won this game more for, call them our allied players, is because they deployed together, they worked as a team together, and they were ultimately able to protect their most valuable assets, which I think it's pretty clear to say the artillery here won the day. And just a little bit of blobbing and perhaps a small amount of lack of teamwork is what perhaps caused the downfall of our opponent's team here. So thank you once again to Mironava for sending me this replay. Thank you to all the players who played. It was a pleasure playing with you whenever I got the chance. And I know some of you subscribed, so thank you so much for that. And yeah, so once again, my name is Brett. My channel is Good Talk Gaming. I love Total War Warhammer 2. I hope you, if you're seeing this right now, I hope you consider subscribing to my channel and sticking around, because I'll be covering, you know, Total War games. I'll be doing 3 Kingdoms when that comes out. On the glorious, glorious day when Total War Warhammer 3 releases, I will be all over it. But in the meantime, I think right now we're just waiting for the next Lizardmen Skaven DLC, which should have at least 2 new lords for us to play with, and hopefully regiments of renown. I can't wait, and a couple of new additional units for each faction as well. But anyway, guys, that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.